Hey everybody, this is Perch. How much does online really impact movies and performance and everything else? All the commentary, all the stuff you see on Twitter, all the culture war stuff. And my theory is, I mean, if you've been listening to the channel, is not much. I think there's lots of evidence to support that. I think there's plenty of examples where all the YouTube videos, all the articles, all the finger wagging from Mary Sue or from Vox or from Cosmic Book News. I'm sorry, I don't know that they're all ridiculous, but that last one, I'm telling you. Anyway, um, the despite all of these things always seem to play out pretty much exactly like you suspected they would. It doesn't really have an impact, and I've seen some people come in the comments and they'll say things like, if we don't fight the culture war, they'll win, or we're not going to give up now, we're winning. And I think that people who say things like that have a strange view of winning. Like I don't know what you're classifying as winning exactly. I hope that to you winning is personal, meaning if you're happy in your life, you're spending money the way you like. You always want to make a comic and you're making a comic. You're winning. You winning doesn't mean somebody else is losing. It means you are successful and things are going well for you. To me, that's winning. I don't think that's a lot of people's definition. Unfortunately, I think for a lot of people, the definition of winning is that other person is losing. I think that's the kind of the big communication difference between people and a lot of these things. But to me, the fact of somebody else losing is pretty irrelevant to me. I'm out for me. And you could say that's selfish. You could say it's a lot of things, but where I'm concerned, it's I need to be happy in life. I need to be successful. I need for things to be coming in. What's happening to everyone else really doesn't impact me too much, unless they are trying to detour my success. In which case, my win scenario is just to get them out of the way. What happens to them beyond that is, again, not something I'm terribly interested in. But I find that there's two questions to me that always kind of indicate if people are thinking the wrong way, or at least they're off track in terms of kind of the relative influence of all these things. And there's one for each. So I'm going to piss off half of you. All right, you ready? So there's question one, question two. Hopefully, you listen to both of these and you're like, I don't get it. I none of those impact me. If so, success for you. You are on the path to being happy and winning and just getting rid of all this other nonsense. Okay. So question one is, or it's actually less of a question than more of a belief. If you're with this statement, I believe that toxic fans who review bombed the Ghostbusters reboot, the all women Ghostbusters, caused the film to fail. Do you believe that? If you believe that, you are categorically wrong. There's been plenty of surveys, reports. People are a lot. Believe it or not, Hollywood is desperate to know if things like Rotten Tomatoes or other online sites are impacting the box office of films. If they are, they're going to spend money there. They're going to influence it. They're going to try and take it down. And there have been attempts to get Rotten Tomatoes to change. There's been influence pushed on those guys and everything else, but not very successfully and not consistently. And by and large, the studios don't spend a lot of time thinking about Rotten Tomatoes. Now, to be clear, absolutely, did some fans go to Rotten Tomatoes, or did some people go to Rotten Tomatoes? I guess they're not fans of the movie, and create alt accounts and try and review bomb things like Lady Ghostbusters and the new Star Wars films and everything else? Sure, I'm sure they did. I'm confident that they did, mainly because they bragged about doing it. Like the people who did it, it was not a psyop. They were like, yeah, we're going to do this, and we did it. And so I'm sure that some people did it. However, this is where as it turns out, time is a linear line. We do not have time travel as of yet, or so the Russians would have you believe. Um, I guess it's Germans. So the Germans. Anyway, we don't have time travel. And the early reviews, and more importantly, the early money what the theaters are going in on, how the pacing of the film was going to be, that started to clock in before the big quote unquote review bombing. Now, people have memory hold this a little bit, but if you look at the timeline, the big, where you saw this surge of 1 star negative reviews came after the film had actually been in theaters for a little bit. Now you say, wait a minute, well, if they also did that to the trailer, and the trailer on YouTube got a bunch of dislikes, that's true. There were a bunch of dislikes to the trailer. However, as we've seen, and you can chart any movie trailer to likes and dislikes on YouTube, they do not correlate. There are movies that have made lots of money. We're about to talk about one in the second question that's going to piss the other half of you off. But things like Star Wars, as it turned out, made a lot of money. Certainly had a whole flurry of negative reviews. There's been articles written on both sides of the quote unquote aisle of the culture war that pretty definitively state with evidence that things like reviews or ratings on YouTube, thumbs up, thumbs down, bear zero consequence on a film's financial success. And that's a good thing, quite frankly. It means more people are just out there to go and watch and like or dislike things on their own. But it just, there's not a correlation. There was another survey that, of all people, Vox did, that pointed out that Rotten Tomatoes, the audience that went to see movies, any movie, claim that Rotten Tomatoes played into their movie-going choice less than 5% of the time. Now think about that for a moment. Of course, normies do not go, you know what, I'd like to go to a movie. Let's go see that new Marvel movie. There's a new one out. Let's go see it. But before we do, let's head over to Rotten Tomatoes and see what it's reviewed as. If it's got the green rotten icon on there, I don't think I'm going to see it. That's where I draw the line, is what Rotten Tomatoes thinks. That's not how normies think. People get excited about a trailer, they go to the movie, they like it or dislike it. They do not get their influence from the internet, as much as a lot of people on the internet would like to have you believe they do, and they want you to believe they do because they want to be relevant. Rotten Tomatoes wants to be seen as a meaningful site. Twitter wants to be seen as a meaningful form of discourse. It is not, but that's what it would prefer. I'm seeing this interesting reaction with Moon Knight. The trailer came out, and the reactions are, oh, this looks like garbage. Oh, this is like, no, this is, oh, look, this is terrible. They're using that cutesy Marvel humor and all the rest. Sure, except that trailer, like pretty much all the Marvel trailers, it's like it's written by an AI at this point. Marvel knows how to just stamp out pacing. Okay, we're going to use some jarring music with some little kind of noises in there, and we're going to put in some cutesy joke, usually with an old person involved somewhere in the picture, because that makes it kind of funny. And then we're going to have some quick cuts, and we're going to have the protagonist does not know what's going on. What's going on here? I don't know what's going on. And there's going to be some strobe lights and and then a logo. That's how Marvel does trailers, and normies eat it up every time. Normies are not goofy slack-jawed NPCs who are putting colorful icons in their Twitter bio. Normies are just people who are going to work day in, day out and don't really care about any of this stuff. And Disney/Marvel has absolutely figured out the formula to just capture their money. It makes them warm and comfortable inside. They watch the Moon Knight trailer, like, oh, yeah, that's got check. There's all the elements that make me think it's a popcorn film I'll enjoy. They're going to continue to ride this formula until it's dead, and it's a long way from being dead. They have perfected it. Now, many of you may go, I'm sick of that, and that's fine. But, that's, it is what it is. Like, there's no... I don't know. I'm always amazed by people who analyze the Marvel trailers like, well, this one's not very good. It's like, dude, they're all the same. Like, they're all the same. Loki was the same. Arguably, WandaVision did something slightly different, but Hawkeye was this way, but with Christmas music. Loki was this way, exactly. Falcon Winter Soldier was this way. Moon Knight's this way. Endgame was this way. When that trailer came out, Captain Marvel was this way. They're all this way. To insert one or two cutesy jokes, insert a bunch of surprise. Anyway, regardless, that's question number one. If you believe that toxic fandom is what took down Ghostbusters, you're nuts. What took down Ghostbusters was it was a bad movie. It was reviewed poorly. People who went to see it didn't like it. Period. It was not evil fandom that somehow got through Twitter and said they hated it. That was an interesting aspect of the culture war, but it was absolutely meaningless. People who went to that movie did not enjoy it. The end. Now, here's for the second question. And this one's going to be sticky because people cling on to this one, much like the people cling on to toxic fans ruin Ghostbusters somehow. People cling on to this one as well. And so it's going to hurt you, coming right at you. You believe that Disney faked all of the box office receipts for Captain Marvel, and it was actually a complete bomb. It didn't make any of the money that it claimed to make. Or it made $500 million. But Disney completely faked that other $500 million. Now, this became a popular internet theory, but it's not true. I know that there's been anecdotal evidence. I know that there's people out there who's like, I went to go see this movie, and when I got into the theater, it was empty, even though, I went to AMC and it said it was sold out. Well, AMC, talked about that, about how they reserved seats, about how they did certain things for the movie to, gate how people are coming in. They say they do the same thing for every film expected to do well, and they misjudge all the time. But more importantly than that, Disney is a public company. Disney has to publish their records. And Disney, as it turns out, during the Fox acquisition and other, things that companies they acquire, they have to disclose aspects of this. They have to actually, reveal where they're spending, big chunks of money. Now, can they get away with sliding, 5 million, 10 million under the table? Probably. 500 million? No. And they were under a heavy amount of scrutiny during the Fox acquisition. They're under a heavy amount of scrutiny all the time in the entertainment business because of things exactly like this. Back in the 70s, there was a case where I believe Paramount, but that I may be getting that wrong. It's down the memory hole for me. But one company was falsely inflating their money. Now, in this case, they weren't buying tickets; they were just lying about what it was bringing in. And they were putting on the statements, and then later they were writing it off as an error. And they were doing this because they wanted to present the appearance of, strong success in week 1 and week 2. And it turns out that there were regulations against that, regulations that got strengthened against that, and they got in a lot of trouble. They had to pay fines. They had to stop doing the practice. Now, does that mean that Disney, as powerful as they are, is not conducting this elaborate scheme to lie and mislead people? In theory, Disney has the ability to do that, given how powerful and huge of a company they are, but they're not. You have to really buy in to a massive conspiracy that, if uncovered, and here's the problem, it would be easy for it to be uncovered. It would be easy for this stuff to come out. If uncovered, it would take down the executive team at Disney. It would make it hard for them to do business anymore. It would the board would have liability. It would be devastating to the company. And they went through how money was being spent, where their engagement was with theaters and other things during the Fox acquisition, because they were concerned about antitrust. They were concerned about the company using influence to manipulate the markets. They were looking specifically for things like this. The idea that the Disney is invested hundreds of millions of dollars, not again a little bit of money, hundreds of millions of dollars to make this film successful because they were that behind Captain Marvel it is ludicrous. And as we've seen since, we did not see Disney shove Captain Marvel down our throats for Captain Marvel 2 and 3. We didn't see Brie Larson become a Disney princess. We didn't see any of the other aspects of what it would mean if they suddenly decided to determinedly stand by Larson. Disney absolutely wanted that film to do well, absolutely promoted, absolutely stood by their cast like they always do. But I don't think it's a coincidence that Captain Marvel 2 is now a kind of Team Marvel's book that's expected to include Monica Rambeau and Miss Marvel and other things. I think they recognize that they need to do more to prop up that character. But Captain Marvel made all that money, and here's the other part: it's not that weird that it made all that money. A year earlier, Black Panther made a similar box office. After Black Panther came Avengers, the Infinity War, which made a ton of money, got a huge amount of interest. The interest in the MCU was at its peak at that point. Later came Captain Marvel, followed a couple months later by Endgame, the conclusion, which is going to feature all the characters, all the stuff coming together. Final appearance of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and a bunch of other key characters to the. So there was red hot interest in the MCU at this period of time. The idea that a film like Captain Marvel would make the same amount of money as the films before and after it in that same category is quite likely. Again, did some theaters? I know that some theaters did some things where they bought tickets for schools and they tried to get young girls in STEM to go see the movie for some god awful reason. All those things happened. Does that answer why some theaters were empty? Probably. But to believe this is a giant conspiracy is buying into too much. But I know that the challenge is that it's a hardened belief in people's minds, both of these things, that toxic, evil fans, likely living in their parents' basement, who have mommy issues and grossly overweight and white, of course, they're all white. They conspired to take down the mortal enemy of Lady Ghostbusters. And on the other end of the spectrum, evil rainbow-haired pierced goons wanted to make sure that Captain Marvel made some of the more money than a lot of the straight white male movies, and so they deliberately hid numbers and bought tickets and basically blew all the profit that they made off Black Panther in order to falsely prop up Captain Marvel so they could own Trump. Those things are they're ridiculous. And if you find yourself fighting that aspect of the culture war, you're fighting a losing war. You're fighting uphill. And more importantly, to what I said at the very beginning, are you winning? Are you doing well in life? If you're obsessed with some evil fanboy putting a bad review on for Ghostbusters, what was it? Even Answer the Call? Is that what it was? If that's your obsession in life, you've gone wrong somehow. You're not living your best life. I've said this before, and I don't know why this is so tough for people to digest. But the honest to goodness truth is, the absolute best way to win, the absolute best way to send a message, the absolute best way to ultimately get more of what you like and less of what you don't, is close your wallet to the things you don't like. That's vastly more effective than a tweet where you're using the hand clapping emoji between every word or whatever else. Don't fund it in any form. If even including, by the way, if you go to a video, and I saw this firsthand. There's a movie coming out for Disney, and a bunch of people went in and they dislike bombed it. They all went in and they disliked the movie. So the movie ratioed the dislike. It had that's not exactly what ratio means, but anyway, you had like 1/10 the like to dislikes. However, all those dislikes counted as a view. And so what happened was, the marketing department walked in and said, "Hey, this trailer's getting a ton of views, success," and people were happy. They did not look at the dislikes. They did not really care. They looked at the views. All the people who were hating on that movie contributed to views. They contributed to that movie coming off like it was going to be a success. And more often than not, all the attention that this brings, if you do not simply ignore what you hate, close your wallet to it, and consume what you do, you often wind up helping the side you're trying to defeat. It is far more effective to, silence and removal is a really effective weapon, as it turns out. For what it's worth, I know that there's theories that even if you dislike something, they're going to prop it up a different way. And I mean, you could chase that forever. We can go down the rabbit hole of what could be, but life's usually pretty simple. And at the end of the day, if you personally are happy with whatever you're doing, wherever you are, you're winning. So that's simple. Make sure you're happy first. What everybody else is up to, really pretty irrelevant. Anyway, thanks for listening.